Today, our song is a very impactful one and one that influenced me quite a bit, Oma. I don't know about you, but it was lovely, wasn't it? It's a lovely song today.
Let me tell you something. I love this tune.
Mm.
All this female empowerment, this song.
She was the originator.
And in a good way, wholesome and positive. So this song, even listening back now, I'm like,
yeah,
that this song, we need this. We need more of this right now.
And we don't really have it today,
No.
which is a bit sad. But today, this song we're going to be covering, it was written in 1999, actually, at the cusp of the millennium. And it was the lead single from this artist's debut album, Acoustic Soul. So this was her first ever album. And the song today is Video by India Arie.
Love this song.
Woo! I feel like we have like a clap or something.
Honestly, India Arie, for these lyrics right here, she needs...
She does. She needs her flowers, actually.
She needs her flowers, yeah.
But we're going to get into that because some of my questions are about the state of the music industry today.
That's all we talk about, really.
Well, we talk a bit about the state of celebrities in the industry.
Yeah.
We don't always talk about the industry
itself. That's true, the general industry.
And it actually didn't peak as high as Twister's Overnight Celebrity, our last episode. It peaked at 47 in the Billboard 100.
Which is pretty low. It's just pretty low, let's be honest. But that says a lot. Because if you listen to these lyrics, it says a lot about what people like to hear, you know. So it's interesting.
At least she got Grammy recognition. She did get a Grammy nomination for the song.
Good.
Yeah, it actually was nominated for Record of the Year and Best Female R&B Vocal Performance, and it was critically acclaimed. It was
good.
Very much valued, and it influenced people, and it went double platinum actually. So
okay, that's good.
Yeah, and before I go into the lyrics, I just want to mention what the inspiration behind the song was for India Arie. And she said that it was a response to societal beauty standards, and it was a declaration of self-acceptance. She wanted to empower listeners to embrace their individuality, their imperfections, and their natural beauty, which is lovely, isn't it, Oma?
So nice, so lovely, so important. So important. I think more now than ever. She was ahead of her time. Look, let's be honest. India Arie was ahead of her time. She was saying what we needed to hear now. When I listen to these lyrics, I'm like, I wish someone was saying this now. I wish there was someone out there that was saying the things that she's saying in this song right now, especially for the young girls out there, the young women who are under so much pressure. I think the pressure now is immense when it comes to beauty standards. And who's immune? None of us are really immune from this pressure. It takes a lot of intentionality to not succumb to the type of pressure that's out there right now. So
it does. It's not easy, but let's get into the lyrics and then open up into some of the topics it uncovers. So it starts off with, sometimes I shave my legs and sometimes I don't.
Look at that. How big is that? I do what I feel like. Listen, she was talking the ting. from the first line, she was talking the ting. Sometimes man wants to be hairy. I'ma be hairy. It don't matter.
That's what she's saying, basically. She's like, I'm not going to, kill myself over this. 100%. I'll see how it goes.
See how I feel.
But I remember at that time, at least, I don't know what it's like today, but it was almost like, forbidden to go out without shaving your legs. Now I'll let you into a little secret about me. I don't have hairy legs at all. Like, I've never shaved my legs in my life.
Oh, wow.
I've never shaved my legs in my life. Girl, I have no hair on my legs.
But you know what it is? Most people probably would be in that position if they didn't start shaving so young. Yes. Because when you shave, that's why when you start to use other hair removal techniques like waxing, they'll say don't succumb to shaving. Even if you've not waxed for a long time, don't succumb to shaving because it brings back the hair coarser because you're just cutting it, but you're not taking it out from the root. So a lot of young girls, I mean, you start shaving, a lot of girls start shaving young because you're encouraged to, because you feel pressure to do so because you see your friends are doing it. So you think, oh yeah, I've got a bit of hair. so I need to do it. And then it actually brings back the hair courser. So then you end up in the cycle of doing it
Wow.
when you don't need to. So the fact
Look
you've
at
never
Oma
done
dropping
it, I'm
science.
telling you,
Our
that's it.
personal in-house scientist. I love it. I
Telling
love
you.
it.
But
You are
that's
actually
why
a scientist. People don't
I
know
am.
this.
People don't know
But
this about me, but you know, by
but this is
degree, by degree.
yeah, by degree. But inside though, I feel like you're a scientist. Anyway,
Yeah.
interesting. I don't often tell people this because people always think it's strange, but it's interesting to now know that it is because really one never started.
You never
Okay, so
started.
India Arie is sort of supporting that idea of not
Yeah.
becoming obsessed with it. Then she says, sometimes I comb my hair and sometimes I won't. Now this one, I think she should comb.
I think she should, but listen, you can fling a cap on that bad boy and go about your merry business. So you don't really, I mean, we're not advocating for not putting yourself together. Right, we're not advocating for that. But
Well,
I don't
India isn't,
believe
at least.
I don't believe India's advocating for not putting yourself together. But if you wake up, you've really got the time, don't be late for whatever you need to do because you've got to comb out your hair and get it done. Find a nice cap and go about your merry way. So there's also some merit to what India's saying here too.
But with natural afro hair, I don't think you can get away with that. Do you know what I mean? Like after 2 days, the curls just want to come together.
They do.
So there is something called finger combing, which is very popular in the
Yes.
Afro natural community, where you finger comb your hair rather than using an actual comb. So maybe that's what she says she does on the odd day. But
Yes.
at least natural afro hair will be tricky to not comb each day. It will get
You'd
quite
have to. But she
tangled.
said sometimes, so it's every now and again. I think what she's saying is every now and again. Sometimes
she doesn't obsess
got the time. She's obsessed
over this stuff. Yeah,
right.
She lets it go.
Do
you know what I mean? Which is, of course, is the key point.
Exactly.
Yeah. And she actually goes on to say, depend on how the wind blows. I might even paint my toes.
Do you see? You know what I love about this song? It's just the flexibility. Sometimes it's the flexibility. You ain't got to get your mani-pedi every 2 weeks.
Yes,
listen,
this
upkeep, this female upkeep, it is expensive
and stressful. And you know what? It's often described as self-care. But after a while, all the appointments, it starts to have the opposite effect.
Exactly.
It becomes actually a burden. It's no longer self-care.
Oh, I've got to go and do my eyebrows. Oh, I've got to go and do my lashes. Oh, I've got to find a slot to now do my mani-pedi. It's just a lot. And actually, you could just relax at home.
Yeah.
Do it yourself if you need to. Just chill. Just cut. I saw a meme. Or was it a meme? Not a meme. It was a reel. And it wasn't a meme. It was two ladies talking. It was a reel. And they were just saying, I'm jumping off the self-care bandwagon. They were like, I'm jumping off because the installing the unit is costing me £1,000 a time, getting it restyled, doing my eyelashes. They were listing out how much it's costing them every month to keep up with all this stuff. And they were like, I'm jumping off. And this is what India Arie is saying here. She's like, I'm not even on it. I'm not on it. Depend on how the wind blows. If it's blowing east, I do my toes. If it's blowing west, I might say, you know what, I can't even be bothered today. And that's the flexibility.
Totally. And what it indicates is if we're willing to be flexible, it means our happiness is not dependent on things always being perfectly done. But there's another element to this that I'm going to ask you about, actually, because it's important to have something else in place to allow us to be flexible. Flexibility, great word there, Oma. And then she goes, it really just depends on whatever feels good in my soul.
Love it.
Great
Love it.
opening verse, isn't it? Unlike Twister, which started with hose, them hose. Them hose this.
Apple bottom jeans. Boots with the fur.
Oh dear.
Oh man.
So this is a good opening. This is someone who, as we said, is flexible. Their outer appearance doesn't seem to determine their happiness, and they really just take care of themselves or do certain things like manicures because they feel like doing it that day, not because of any other pressure or reason. Then she goes on to say, I'm not the average girl from your video. And I ain't built like a supermodel, but I learned to love myself unconditionally because I am a queen.
Listen, India gets snaps for days for these lyrics right here. I think as you get older as well, you just understand the importance of this, you know? I have a little girl, and
Yeah.
when I look at her growing up and stuff, I don't want her to ever get to the stage where she's obsessing over her external, how she looks, where she can't be happy in herself because she doesn't have a
Yeah.
BBL, or she doesn't have, whatever it might be. The thought of that just makes me feel so sad, that she could ever get to that point, because I see so much of her personality and how she is that's so beautiful. Those are the things I'd want her to always push to cultivate and craft. So just to think that she'd spend all her time thinking about the external things, which fade. Listen, they fade. You're not going to be looking like, even if you are a supermodel, there's going to come a point where you don't look like that no more. So to spend your life on that type of upkeep, it's just so
It's a lot.
sad, because life is so fleeting,
Yeah. And I think we see a lot of women who, are in the limelight and who are celebrities not really be able to handle getting older. And we see them by any means necessary try and stay young. They'll have, I think Kim Kardashian had her first facelift when she was in her 30s. But they only last about 10 years, apparently. So every 10 years, you've got to keep like restretching. But then after a while, you can start looking a bit strange. And because they have this youthful look in their head and they can't handle the getting older, we see that they look strange. Like Madonna, for instance, we see that they look, not right, and we'd probably prefer we definitely just
Yes.
prefer the older natural look, but they can't see it because they've become obsessed with staying looking a certain way, and
100%.
their joy and their happiness is wrapped up in that, and they can't handle it.
It's really, really sad.
Yeah, it is sad. So absolutely, just accepting oneself is important, and that's what she wanted to accomplish in this song. So she has already said she's learned to love herself unconditionally. She's accepted she's not the typical girl in a music video. And at the time she wrote this song, music videos were everything when it came to music. And the video vixen, the video girl, was the
Yes.
standard of
That was the
beauty,
standard. Yeah,
right?
100%.
So she's writing this song at a time where she's basically saying, I'm going against this, and yeah, I'm still
So
beautiful and I'm still
countercultural.
confident. Yeah, very, very countercultural. So then she says again, I'm not the average girl from your video. My worth is not determined by the price of my clothes. No matter what I'm wearing, I will always be India Arie. Identity. We said flexibility. Now the word identity is coming to me. She knows who
Identity.
she is. She
100%.
knows who she is, and it is coming across very strongly.
No, it is. It is. Honestly, I just have to sigh. And these lyrics, though, they're so powerful. When you really take it in and you think about the way things have gone and are continuing to go, because this is a continuing trend, it gets more frightening and more frightening when you've got 9 and 10-year-old girls running into Sephora to buy products with niacinamide and retinol and all these things. You just start to think, obviously these lyrics, if we just had more people who were saying this, I think it would be so helpful to a lot of people. But yeah, identity, that comes out so strongly. She's content with who she is, and the external things are just not moving her. And I think that's so important.
And then she goes on to say, when I look in the mirror and the only one there is me, every freckle on my face is where it's supposed to be. And I know my creator didn't make no mistakes on me. My feet, my thighs, my lips, my eyes, I'm loving what I see.
Oh, I just listen. Fearfully and wonderfully made. This is what she's saying. She's saying that how I was made is how I'm supposed to be made, for whatever the purpose that God had intended. This is how he's made me. So there's no mistakes. There's nothing wrong. This is how I'm supposed to be made. And so I'm loving it. I'm loving the fact that, even the fact she's looking in the mirror and she's only seeing herself, but she's seeing all the things and they're all functioning as they should. It even goes back to, just thinking about the movements that we have right now, but also just that there is another kind of countercultural movement, which is more around being healthy and being just strong, just being healthy, not thinking about the aesthetic, moving, the fact that you're able to move in a day, like being so joyful about that. And I feel like that's what India Arie is advocating, looking at yourself and being happy that you've got a body, you've got a face, you can move, you can run, you can look at yourself, you can smile, like all these types of things. So yes, powerful.
And we've really normalized wanting to change oneself, which is something that I want us to talk about later. So it's quite odd, right, to hear her say, every freckle, my feet, all my imperfections, is exactly how it was meant to be. There's nothing out of order here.
100%.
So yeah, really powerful. I agree. And then she repeats the chorus and goes on to, my mama said a lady ain't what she wears, but what she knows. But I've drawn the conclusion, it's all an illusion. Confusion's the name of the game. A misconception, a vast deception. Something's got to change. So she's highlighting here that the reason we're in the state we're in, people, women and men actually, which we'll talk about as well, not being able to accept themselves and wanting to change themselves, thinking that their value and their worth is based on outer things, is someone's trying to confuse everything and deceive people. If only they knew what the truth was. And so all of that is just a deception.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then she goes, go on and love yourself, because everything's going to be all right. Keep your fancy drinks and your expensive minks. I don't need that to have a good time. Keep your expensive car. Remember, Twister said...
we don't care about the whip. We don't care about the whip.
Twister could not get India Arie.
No.
He would bring out all the promises. He would not be able to
not at
get
all.
Her. She's
unmoved.
She would be
completely.
Like, you can keep it. And if you don't know what we're talking about, folks, our previous episode was a song by Twister, so please do check it out. And she goes, keep your expensive car and your caviar. All I need is my guitar. Keep your crystal and your pistol. I'd rather have a pretty piece of crystal. Don't need you silicone. I prefer my own. What God gave me is just fine.
Brilliant.
And we'll end on reading the lyrics through that. And this just uncovers a lot of topics, Oma. But the first thing that I'm going to ask about is what can sometimes be the genesis of not being satisfied with how one looks, and that determining one's sense of worth and value and who they are. There's a line she says, my mama said a lady ain't what she wears, but what she knows. And so I wonder if this belief, this confidence, this sense of self was very much informed by India's mother and her home life, which is why I say, what is the genesis of this? Is it that the home? Of course, no matter how one is raised, like society influences us, friends influence, there's many influences on us. But if we just look at what could be the beginning of this. And so my question to you is, what is a mother's role in passing on this belief? And I wanted to ask you this because you're a mother and you're raising a girl who's absolutely beautiful and smart and fun. So for you, what is the role of mothers in passing this on? And not just from a personal experience, just your view generally. And has this always been the case?
Yeah. I think it has always been the case. And I think the challenge that we've had is I don't think mothers have always been as intentional as they should be about teaching their children. And, we see scripture that says, we should, older women should teach the younger women. I don't know if we've always been as intentional about doing it because of life circumstance, busyness. So this is not a negative. This is to say that, things can get in the way and other things can fill your mind, which means that you can't be as intentional. And so friends come in, other people come in, and that then becomes the influence. But I think the role of a mother is so critical because ultimately your first place of your first formation in terms of your values and what you hold dear is always going to come from the first people that you're seeing, and that's always going to be your parents. Mothers generally are the main caregivers, at least for the first, couple of years of a child's life, the formative early years. It's mostly going to be mothers. It's not always the case. Obviously, we know there are exceptions to that, but whoever that foundational parent is, which is most times the mother, they're gonna, form a lot of your child's sense of identity. And we've talked about this with India, it goes back to identity. The most important thing, and studies are showing this now, and this is why it's so important as a woman. We all have different upbringing and different things that happen. There's traumas, there's all these things, but it's so important to get to a place of self-contentment and self-awareness, I think, before having children, or at least whilst you're trying to raise your children, because their studies are now showing that a happy mother creates happy children. Their studies are showing that it's not about expensive education, all the toys, all of these things. It's about a happy mother, a mother that is content with herself, a mother that is able to give time to her children, to play, to give affection, a mother that can give affection to her children. These are all the things that are so important for a sense of identity. And that sense of identity doesn't come from you saying, you're great, you're the best, you're wonderful, you're fantastic, because that can actually do the opposite. And that can cause children to
inflated sense of self,
right? Or they feel like they crave affirmation all the time because you're saying it. It's just about creating spaces for them to just be themselves, flow, and feel safe being who they are. If they have a meltdown, just be there, if they are acting up, gently encourage, give them space to kind of have that and know that it doesn't mean they're a bad person. These are all the types of things. So I think the role of the mother is critical. And I think we have to be very intentional about that role. The reality is we're never going to get it right all the time, right? I always say that we're probably all going to do things that are going to impact our children. So it's all about damage control.
Yeah,
so we're all going to have, they're all going to say, my mum did this and that, which, it's always going to be the case, because we're not perfect, but being as intentional as we can. So I think it is critical. And I think from a mother's perspective, if a daughter is constantly hearing you say, I'm so fat, I'm so this, I'm so that, I need to lose weight, I need to look better, what is she going to internalize? That there's something in this being skinny that is worth chasing after. There's something in this looking different, or there's something in this looking like this, or having brighter skin or lighter skin, or whatever it is, that is what I need to chase after. You might not realize you're doing it. And that's why you can't say, well, I'm telling her she's wonderful whilst you're telling yourself you're crap. Like you can't, those two can't operate together, because all she's seeing is she's looking at what you're doing, not what you're saying. It's about what you do. So us setting that example of being content, being, content with ourselves, loving ourselves is very important. We're not going to get it right every time, but it's just, like I say, the intentionality. So the role of a mother for me is critical. It is foundational, but it starts with our role is to be content with ourselves, to love ourselves, to be, and loving yourself is not, thinking you're the best thing since sliced and there's no room for improvement. It's just being content with yourself, knowing that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God had a purpose in everything he created when he made you, making sure that you are so secure in that's what overflows to your children. And I think that's the important role of a mother, especially in today's society.
Absolutely. Because if we're not content with ourselves, we might think, oh, it's only affecting us. But, once you've got kids, they are seeing that, especially your daughter. Like you said, if you're always complaining about how you look, or always going out to get plastic surgery and change yourself, they will see this and it will affect them as well. And it's very interesting because we emphasize a lot the role of the father in this, for women especially, that it's, people often, say things that I don't think are very helpful or nice, like, oh, she's got daddy issues and that's why she, is so obsessed with how she looks, or that's why she portrays herself in that way. But actually, we don't talk about mummy issues enough. And the role of mothers in ensuring that women are confident in who they are, and that could potentially actually have a bit more of a negative impact, but we don't recognize it. And that's why it's so important that we as women start to accept ourselves, not just for us, but for the next generation of women, because they are looking at us, whether they're 2, 6, 10, they're looking at how we perceive our own self-image, and that will influence them.
Most
And
definitely.
something else that you shared that I think is important is to do that proactively, not passively. And in that proactive approach, that whole self-love thing, and like how you said, it's not just about constantly affirming them and saying they're great even when they're not, because it can, yes, make them crave constant affirmation, or what I mentioned is it can give them an inflated sense of self that's not quite accurate. For me, true self-love is two parts. It's knowing where you're a hot mess, like it's actually knowing very clearly where you have weaknesses, where you have gaps, where you have issues, where you have insecurities, knowing them very well, and allowing people who you trust to be able to mention them.
Yeah.
I think if someone can't give a person feedback without them going crazy, getting upset, crying, whatever, it is a sign actually of low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So we want to get to that place where we actually know we're not enough and we're a mess actually in a lot of areas, and where we lack, where we don't have enough, and we allow others to give us honest feedback. But then most critically, we have the confidence enough to try and make it better.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just wallow and dwell and be happy with those issues we have, especially if they affect others negatively. We should definitely be driven to make them better. So that for me is one part of self-love. And the other part of self-love is also knowing where we have amazing strengths, knowing where we're unique, where we bless people, where we shine, where we have strengths, and being comfortable with that as well. Because likewise, there are some people who can't take compliments. They can't take accepting where they are good and where they're strong and where they're doing well. It's hard for them. And we all are like this, including myself. We all can sometimes struggle to receive those compliments, and we all can sometimes struggle to receive feedback well. But again, not being able to receive praise or compliments or appreciation can also be a sign of not having enough self-love and having low self-esteem. So I think self-love encapsulates all of both those things, and it includes both those things. It's being able to say, yeah, actually I'm good at that, and that is a strength, and I shine here. This is a gift I have or whatever, but actually, this is where I mess up and where I have issues and where I've got to try to be better there and sort it out.
100%.
And self-love is often portrayed as perfect, but we see in this song India Arie saying, I know I'm not perfect. Like, I know this doesn't look great. I know I've got these freckles or I've got these flaws, but I still see myself as valuable.
Yes. And that's the
and
point.
I still love
see
myself.
myself as valuable. I'm still valuable without the external things.
But this leads on to my other point, where it can be hard to accept oneself despite your flaws and your imperfections, especially when those we're around are not as forgiving, where they do say actually your worth is valued by how you look. And when she was talking about not getting her nails done and her hair done and whatnot, I thought of women who either have a partner or a husband who will judge them for not having their nails done all the time. Because as much as mothers play a role in this, and we've got to role model what it is to have self-acceptance, society plays a role in it as well.
It does.
So even if your mum has raised you to understand where your worth lies, to accept yourself and love yourself and still be okay with being different, you go out into society and society might say, oh, you've not shaved your legs. Oh, you've not combed your hair. You're not going to get that job. You're not going to get that opportunity. We're not going to accept you into this space. You're going to be rejected. How can women, and to be honest, this is an issue men have as well.
Yes.
How can people navigate and deal with those social pressures and even pressures from a partner who is saying, oh, I can't even look at you because you've put on weight, or you're disgusting now because you've not combed your hair, or you didn't get your nails done. I'm just not as attracted to you anymore. Get away from me. How do you then still stay in this? I love myself. My mama told me, that my value isn't in what I look like.
I think it's really tough. I honestly think it's really, really tough, especially if it's coming from, if it's coming from society. I think that boils down to, you know, the proactive work that we talked about. So the more you can practice, you know, the thought patterns of I'm valuable as I am. I, you know, the things I value are, you know, India Arie talks about, you know, I'm happy with just my guitar. I have these talents. I'm a musician. I'm whatever it is. The more you can kind of put focus onto the other things that you do, that you love, that you're passionate about, I think the more the societal voices can kind of fade away, right? I honestly don't think we should identify in anything external, even if it's like a talent. I don't think
Yeah.
we should, like, you know, identify in our talents either. But
Yeah. We
the
spoke
more,
about that in one of our
yeah,
episodes,
the
actually.
more we can just focus on, I'm trying to be the best person I can be every day. You know, I'm taking each day as it comes, and I'm improving. I think that's the thing. There's a confidence that comes from knowing that you are working on yourself. I'm
Yeah,
getting the
exactly.
therapy that I need. You know, I am, you know, whatever it might be, whatever you
Challenging this
challenge, you
thought
know,
pattern.
challenging the thought
Yeah.
pattern. I'm making sure that I'm spending time in environments that are encouraging me, whether that be, I don't know, your church environment or whatever your community environment is. But I'm focusing on the things that are building me up as a human. I think that the more you are intentional and the more you're doing that, I feel like that's the stuff that can help with the societal pressures now. When it
Very true.
comes to a spouse,
Yeah.
I find that challenging. And the challenge for
Mm-hmm.
me is obviously when you are married, the two become one. And
Mm.
for me, having a spouse not affirm you,
Mm.
make you feel like your external is more important than anything else, I think that that
Mm.
is very, very challenging. And for me, I think the only thing you can do again is ensure that you're plugged into communities that are going to
Mm.
continuously still build you up, so that you're not so moved by that voice. And I think as well, though, it goes beyond, like, the thing to really do is to ask these questions. And we've talked about this, and so I don't really want to labor on this, but before you are going to marry someone, these are the
Mm.
things you have to consider. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm a young woman with no children, and so I can focus on my upkeep. When I've got children and maybe I gain some weight, you know, all the women in my family have gained weight having babies. If I gain some weight, how would you feel? I feel like these are the types of questions to ask so that you get a sense of where the person's value system lies, you know, because I think if
Mm.
a guy is constantly saying to this woman that's gained weight, maybe for whatever reason, you need to lose the weight, you need, well,
Yeah.
where does his
It
value
does happen,
system
though.
lie? And it does happen. It does happen. That's why I think that when we're choosing a spouse, we've got to think further than today. We've got to think about all that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in people's defense, you might not know. You might not have considered how it would impact you. You just see
Mm.
someone and they look how they look, and you don't know that they could ever gain weight. You just can't, because it's hard to imagine someone gaining 50 pounds. You just don't think
Mm.
it can happen, and then it does. But yeah, I think it's just a value system. Having those aligned values will help you both to navigate the situation when it arises, and not make it then the focal point of your happiness in your relationship, these external things. But it's a tough one, because attraction is an important thing in a relationship. When you're
Mm.
married to someone, you want to be attracted to them. We can't say that that's not important. um so that is a tough one. Honestly, Lou, I don't know if there's a solution for
Yeah.
it in that sense, because if you're constantly being ground down every day about losing weight, I mean, it doesn't help as well. That doesn't make you want to get up and go and run when someone's telling you how butters you are.
Yeah.
You don't exactly
Yeah.
want to go outside and
Exactly.
run, do you?
Exactly. I think that the two things can exist. You
Yes.
can want someone to lose weight or to comb their hair more, for instance, or look a certain way externally because it aids attraction or whatever. But you can still affirm them and let
Yes.
them know you love them and that
Yes.
their value, their worth is not tied up in
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
actually, your
Yeah.
love for them is not tied up in that. You can still do both. But when I listen to a lot of women speak to other women actually who have just had a baby, especially in entertainment and stuff, there's this sort of snapback pressure,
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
and
Yeah.
it's other women imposing it on
Yeah.
other women. Oh, you got to make sure you snap back for him because otherwise, he'll start looking at other women, all this
Yes.
kind of stuff. And there's all this pressure to keep this perfect shape.
Yeah.
And especially when I look at women in entertainment that've had babies, they're boasting. I think I saw a post or something by Cardi B after she had her second child, where she was boasting about getting her shape back within 3 months after having the baby. And I just thought, well, if we're imposing this pressure on one another as women, or if the men in our lives are saying, well, if you don't snap back, don't blame me if I have, go out and get with someone else. To your point, how have we determined whether or not to marry this person?
Yes.
On what basis have we determined it? On what criteria have we determined it? I would absolutely hate to have that pressure from a husband, or to feel that it's me upholding my end of the bargain, right? I've got to stay always with my nails done, my hair did, always a size 10. Otherwise, if he leaves, I can't blame him. I mean, this is the mentality and the pressures that are on some women, and I feel like there is another parallel universe that exists out there where actually the guy doesn't just want to start looking at other women just because externally you're not looking as great as you did.
Yes.
And obviously this is also with age, right? This is where an older man married a woman. Well, he might not even be older. Let's just say he married a woman when they were both, say, 35 and 30.
Yes.
He gets rich. We see this story play out.
Yeah.
So he gets rich, famous, whatever. And then now they're both 60, 65 and 60. Yes. And he leaves her.
For a 20-year-old.
Goes for a younger woman. I wonder if he ever really loved that woman.
100%. And I think
I wonder. And if it was all based on how she looked. And now she's getting older. She's got the wrinkles. It's like, I'm not really feeling her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's why it does boil down to what was the basis upon which you got married in the first place,
And to me, that is the complete antithesis of what real love is. Like, to ditch someone once they just look too old for you. I just, like, you're literally going against what this love is meant to be about.
Exactly. We say for better, for worse, right? So,
But, when I say these things, I am often thinking about Hollywood, entertainment, because that's what is thrown at us, right? Yeah. But obviously we know it also happens outside of Los Angeles and Hollywood. Okay, so another thing I wanted to chat to you about was this whole plastic surgery phenomenon, which is taking over. I mean, I don't know why, but at least on my Instagram, for a certain period of time, I kept getting these ads to go to Turkey and get a nose job. And they were just showing Black women it was Black women getting nose jobs, and they would do the before and after, and they all had the same nose. It was like quite pointy and, almost Barbie-like.
Yes.
And perfect. And they were pressuring me to, I guess, go to Turkey. Now, I am afraid of any kind of needle surgery. I don't want to be in a hospital. Listen, I wouldn't even get surgery if it was like for a critical health condition. Like, you'd have to push me 100%. To do that, let alone for surgery. So they were barking up the wrong tree, essentially. But there is an increased wave of plastic surgeries becoming normal and accepted to get surgery when you're quite young. And I mean, we do talk about what we see in the media and celebrities a lot, because it does shape and influence people, especially young people. So we've got to do that. Yet we have a song here that is talking about doing the opposite. What do you think are some of the underlying reasons for this new wave of plastic surgery just becoming the norm? Now, I should caveat this to say that in the 90s, it was all about breast implants.
Yeah.
That was the thing. And she does mention this towards the end of the song, where she says, don't need your silicone. I prefer my own. But unfortunately, I think it's only gotten worse. It's all about getting a breast implant now, but it is about getting butt shots, facelifts, face implants. How do we reverse this plastic surgery obsession?
It's not a plastic surgery obsession. It's just a dislike of ourselves. We just don't like ourselves, and we don't like how we look. I'm not going to be dishonest and sit here and say I've never looked at myself growing up and wanted to look another way. When I was growing up, I'm a dark-skinned Black woman. When I was growing up, being a dark-skinned Black woman was not beautiful. It was not the way to be. Growing up, you were not the standard of what pretty was. But then funnily enough, you see, once you leave yourself a little while, you get to an age where, okay, then all of a sudden people are interested in you, and then you get to a point where you realize it's more important for people to be interested in what's inside than what's external. But you kind of got to sit with the discomfort. And
Wow.
there's a discomfort.
Listen.
No, but it's the truth. You've got to sit with the discomfort, the awkwardness of growing up. There's just an awkwardness. We all have it. Every race has it. It's not just black women that have it. Now, we have an extra level of pressure because the beauty standards for us are things that are opposite to just our natural features. The hair, we have broader noses, we have fuller lips. Funnily enough, the fuller lips now, people want fuller lips. So for me, I just think there's a discomfort you've got to sit with when you're growing up and you're getting to grips with your body changing. I, got mature quite quickly, let me put it that way. So I was always bigger than my friends in school. They were always much smaller than me, but then you get to a point where it levels out and then you end up, smaller than people or whatever. We just have to grow through the discomfort. And I think the challenge we have now, and this is just general in life, this is the underlying thing that is impacting everything, is that people don't like to sit with discomfort. And in today's society, we don't really have to. Everything is quick. Everything is quick. If I want a quick fix, you can get what you want quickly. If I want to not feel uncomfortable, I can go online and quickly buy something. I can go to Amazon. Oh, I see these ladies using this machine. As far as I've got the money, I can go on Amazon, I can buy it, and it can come the same day. This is what is driving this for me. I think what's driving the increase of the plastic surgery is the accessibility and the availability. When we were growing up, if you wanted to get your boobs done, you had to wait long and you had to save up, and you couldn't just do it anywhere, and it wasn't all over the place. But obviously with science improving, with technology improving, there's always a quick fix. If I don't like the fact my nose is big, I can just go to Turkey. I can get a cheap flight to Turkey. I ain't got to pay much money now. So this is, I think, what's causing it to happen. But I think the underlying thing is people just don't like how they look. I think for younger people just don't like the discomfort of not being like their peers. It takes a long time, Louise. Honestly, it takes a long time and having the right environment to get to a point where you're not really moved by the masses. And this is India Arie's point. Like, you've got to tell yourself, you've got to look in the mirror and be saying, and I'm not one for speaking things over yourself and manifesting things in that way, but you do have to be able to affirm yourself and focus on your values. And it's not always easy to do that when you have so many voices, but that's the practice that we have to do. But like I say, sitting in that discomfort and not being able to, I think the fact that when we were growing up, we couldn't just change it easily. That's how you got to the point where you said, you know what, it's actually not that bad.
There's no other choice, really.
There's no other choice. So what am I going to do? I've got to live with this. So if I want to live, I've got to keep going with this. So it's not that bad. It's all right. And you just had to take the natural routes to try to improve the things that you wanted to improve. And now you just don't have to. So that's what I think it is. So how do we stop this phenomenon? I'm just not sure if we can. I almost feel like things have gone too far. And I honestly feel like it's going to take more people showing the negative sides of these things for people to realize, actually, you know what, getting the breast implants in Turkey, that's not what's up, because my life could be on the line. Getting injections in my butt from some random person that said they can do it quickly, that's not what's up, because that's going to be harmful to me. I think it's going to have to take more people talking about the negative side of things for people to slow their roll, because these things, they are life-threatening. And you start to see the documentaries of people that went to get a BBL and it went wrong. People are losing their lives over this stuff, and then you think, is it worth losing your life over?
But once you're in a certain mind frame, you're in a certain environment, it can appear like it's everything. And I think, you know how you said we've got to get comfortable with discomfort? Building on that, I think we've got to get comfortable with rejection. Some people may reject us because we don't have the body type they want, or the nose, or the cheekbones. Some people might make fun of us. We've just got to start to accept the discomfort of rejection. And I think one of the biggest journeys we can go on is to be okay with that. And that's what India Arie is talking about in that song.
Exactly.
I think for me personally, one of the things that has had the biggest impact on my life is going on that journey of accepting I will not be everyone's cup of tea.
Exactly.
And not only is that okay, but I don't want to be. I don't want to be everyone's cup of tea.
100%.
That's fine. And The value I have for myself, the way I see myself and my joy is in no way tied to whether or not I'm everyone's cup of tea from a physical perspective or any other perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's important. That's what you have to get into your children.
Yeah.
That people
that
might
very
not
lesson.
like you, but it doesn't matter. You're fine as you are. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and neither should you be. And I just think that with the way things have gone and with this whole social media thing, that's what people want. They want to be everybody's cup of tea. They want everybody to like them, and no one is comfortable sitting in that discomfort. And I think that's what we have to train in our children. It's resilience. Resilience, you know, that bounce back ability. So they said you were this. Well, are you? Do you think you are? If you don't think you are, then let's just keep it moving. It's gonna hurt a little bit. It's gonna smart a little bit, but let's keep it going, because there's better on the other side. The latter things are greater than the former. Let's keep it going, you know?
And on that point of social media is in essence a popularity contest. So it does matter on social media.
It does.
What people think of you, that they like you, they approve of you, and that they don't reject you because you need the followers, and then the followers will give you your brand deals and your opportunities and your money. So yeah, I know we always go in on social media, but in that regard, it's not helpful.
It's not.
But again, I think some people, do manage to navigate social media just being themselves as well, and being flawed and keeping that nose and not having the perfect shape and just being who they are. And I think we should uphold those people more.
I agree.
And follow them more
100%.
and appreciate them more.
Yep.
There's so many questions I have, but I'm just going to ask one more, just because of time. I might ask two. Let's see. But I was thinking about when this song was released, and I mentioned it was released in 1999. And actually around that time, there were a few songs that were covering these themes.
Yeah.
The ones that come to mind the most are Unpretty by TLC. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember
that was a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And it was about struggling with that outer beauty and how society can make you feel like you're not beautiful, and wrestling with appearance and how that ties to self-worth and value. And then I remember Christina Aguilera released a song, you are beautiful no matter what they say. And that was in 2002, so just 3 years after. And there were a couple of songs talking about challenging beauty standards and what real beauty is, and talking about that. It seems like we've regressed. It seems like sometimes people might talk about it like real beauty is within, but it's just
it's fake. It's fake. Even the whole self-care thing, it's all fake. It's all just real talk. Oh, I do my self-care, but you got the most expensive facial massager and you got the most expensive products. That's not self-care. That's just you advertising your products so that everyone could go buy them. It's all driven by capitalism at the end of the day, and people buying stuff. That's what's driving all this stuff. So yeah, but you're right. We've come away from it, because if I think now, I can't think of any positive. I mean, I don't really listen to music that's out nowadays. I've stopped at 2011. Anything past 2011, you're missing me. I don't know, but I can't think of any songs that are popular now and they're about inner beauty, or that have that positive message. I just can't think of any.
But why though? Why? And that was my question. Why are these songs not what is upheld? Why is it actually, India Arie spoke about it's a mass deception? Why are the things that are upheld designed to cause that inner conflict, that confusion, that low self-esteem? Maybe it is all about capitalism, because when you have low self-esteem, you buy a lot of things.
I think it's capitalism. I think that is honestly the biggest driver. Even social media isn't there so that everybody can have their authentic brand and we can all be ourselves. No, it's there because Insta wants you on there making money for their platform. It's advertising. Insta is pummeling ads at you. TikTok is pummeling ads. TikTok is ads and shopping. It's all advertising. And I think the more we can get the reality into our heads that this is not real, these platforms are making millions off of advertising, and they can do it. The more you come on saying I'm authentic, the more you come on doing that on those platforms, right, the more they're making money, because they can gather a tribe around everyone and advertise everything to everyone. So I think the reason why the whole I don't really need people to like me is not being pushed because these big, money making $1 billion companies, they need people to be driven by people liking them. Amazon needs you to want to be something else, because Amazon has got a load of products in all these factories that they need to push out to you today. We've all got Prime. I'm not gonna lie, I love my Amazon Prime. I don't know how we did it before, to be honest, but Amazon Prime is there, and they need to have more people getting things today, getting whatever random crap today. And it's random crap because you use that thing once and then you don't use that thing again for like 2 months. But they need more of that. They need to have.
They just keep buying.
And I honestly think that's what's driving it. And I think if we really think critically about the drivers, that will help us to start to say, wait, am I really not happy with myself for, is this me not being happy with myself? Is this actually something that I just need to really work on and improve? Or am I just saying this because I just saw an advert, or I just saw a reel or a meme or something like that that's just made me feel this way, and I'm just being driven by capitalism, so I'll go out and buy something to make myself feel better? We kind of have to start to look at all of these things very critically, I think. I think that's why.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It does all come down to money. If someone has low self-esteem, is comparing themselves to other people all the time, they're going to want to go out and buy what that other person has. They're going to be buying things to make them feel better, to fill that void, or that feeling of not having much self-worth. So definitely, I think it is driven by money. And if we just even look at, the 90s and the 2000s, the average person didn't really wear lashes and makeup and all this skincare stuff that people do now. Meanwhile, I look at, my mum, and her skin is absolutely amazing.
Right?
And she's never used any serum. She's not...
Right?
She's like, serum what?
What's a serum,
she's never used SPF.
Listen, right?
She's never used any of that stuff. So just less things were purchased, really.
100%.
If you really go back and look at sort of the 90s, 2000s, even the amount of things we buy because we have a phone.
Yeah.
Right? Because of technology, the additional things we now purchase. So definitely, I think I agree with India. There is a attempt at a mass deception in order to fuel our consumerism and for people to make more money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end on this last question, because trends are suggesting that actually the grip that the influencer has had on consumers and what they aspire to be is lessening, and that people are increasingly seeking two things: genuine community, and more authenticity. The truth is, we are social beings.
We are.
And social psychology argues that almost every purchasing decision we make is driven by that.
Yes.
Some people disagree, but social psychology will say everything we do, everything we buy, is driven mostly by how other people perceive us, or how they've influenced us, or wanting to be part of the in-group. So with these two things in mind, if someone decides today, you know what, I'm going to reject beauty standards, or I'm just going to do what I feel like doing, like what India Arie said, I may go out looking a certain way, I may not. I'm just not going to be that pressed about my external appearance, and if I've not shaved my legs, my partner's going to have to accept it and love me anyway. That's what I'm looking for. So what are the costs of doing that? What are the costs of rejecting beauty standards? And what could people be seeking for instead?
What are the costs of rejecting beauty standards? I mean, the obvious cost is that could be viewed in a particular light that isn't, really representative of your character. You don't care about yourself. You're a slob. You're lazy. Whatever titles might come off the back of it, that's an obvious cost. You won't fit in. If you don't get a BBL, and again, I say these are the costs, but these are short-term costs. And these are short-term. If you're looking for a man, you might say that the guys are not really going to be looking at you if you don't have the BBL, because they like the girls in the. But to me, that's all there. But again, I think sitting in that discomfort, what you will find is that you will find another group of people, another community, where you are accepted. You know, there's always going to be a group where you fit, and you will.
And can I even jump on top of that, or add to that? Accepted for your true self.
Exactly.
Because a lot of the stuff people do externally is a mask.
It's a mask.
And you'll find once you strip all that stuff away and you just actually get in a room and
100%
talk to them, who they are doesn't match at all
100%
what they're projecting externally.
I've been at parties with these, mumfluencers, and on Insta, they're sociable, they're out there, they love people, they are on the whole. You will be right next to them, and the whole party, it's a children's party, right? Phone. So it's the perfect opportunity to just chat to mums, and they're on their phone the whole time. They're not sociable. They're not even sociable beings. They're not community beings whatsoever, you can see. So it's all guys. It's all fake because it's marketing and advertising. And I'm not knocking anyone's hustle. Boo, yes, do you. I'm not knocking the sun. Money, no money. I ain't knocking your hustle. But I'm just saying that for us that are, the people that are absorbing it, you've got to see the reality of it. And like I say, it's a short-term thing where you might not be liked, you might not be this. But let's say, okay, you feel that the reason why you can't get a man or you're not, men are not interested in you is because you've got a bum. You haven't got a bum. You're going to find, if you don't go and augment yourself, and you'll find that you will start to meet the guys that don't care about that. And you're free. Then you're free. So sometimes it's not just that, and actually sometimes it's just your general insecurity. Maybe the guys are actually picking up on the general insecurity. It's not about the bum or the skin color or whatever. I know growing up I'd hear girls say, well, because I'm dark skinned, guys are more interested in the light skin. It's like, well, no, I mean, you're gonna find down the line that you're gonna meet the people that like the dark skin. So for me, I just think that you're saying, what are the losses? The losses are you lose a couple friends, you lose that little community, but that community, like you say, was based on what was fake. And actually what you gain is you gain what's real. You finally find yourself in a place where you don't have to have the extras. You can breathe. I feel like coming into this stage of life, the way you can just breathe. The way when I think about my 20s.
Love it.
You got to, because when I think about my 20s and the pressure, Louise, the pressure. The pressure was pressuring. I mean, in uni, none of us had the money to be great anyway, so we just had to get by. But when you're in your 20s and you're working, the pressure is pressuring. You get into a certain stage, and I've got my children, and what are the things that matter to me? Are my children healthy and happy? Am I healthy and happy? Anything.
And your husband loves you no matter what.
No matter.
He just loves you for you.
Literally, right? No matter what, you gain a few pounds, you lose a few pounds, your hair's did, the hair ain't did, you got the cane rose, you got the... It doesn't matter, and it's freeing. There's such a liberty, and I think that's what India Arie was saying, because India Arie has come into that place of liberty, where she's not moved by external trappings, because it's temporary and it's fleeting. She's actually moved more by what's internal, her character, her makeup, and the people around her. That's what they're moved by too. She's created a space for herself where she can be who she wants to be and not be the average girl in the video.
Yeah, listen, and even on top of that, if she does decide to do her hair, do her nails, it's because she just wants to. Like, I find hair and things like that, I just find it fun, right? Exactly. But there's a difference between doing it for fun and then being completely tied to it in terms of the self-worth thing. And I think that's something all people, because sometimes it's external beauty and sometimes it's something else. And there's also, we've not been able to get into it, but there's also the pressures on men to maintain a six-pack. And to, like, that has increased as well.
Get the bag, have all the money, you know?
There's those pressures as well. And I think what we're really talking about is getting comfortable with a few things. I'm gonna summarize what those things are as our sort of takeaways. But I think one of the key things we've spoken about is, one, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And to build on that
pain,
more,
let it burn.
Accepting rejection. Rejection will come when you're yourself. When we accept that we may be rejected because we're not people's cup of tea from a physical perspective or, an outward appearance perspective, we do now connect with people based on who we really are. So it is immediate or short-term pain, but it ends up as long-term gain
100%.
if we just allow ourselves to sit in it.
100%.
Anything else to add before we say goodbye to the people?
No, I think you said it all. Let's not push to be the average girl in a video.
Absolutely.
Free yourself,
Let's
girl.
free ourselves, and this goes for both of us too. I think it's an ongoing thing, because there'll always be people or things trying to come in and tie your worth and your value to external things, or people who don't necessarily want to get to know you just for who you are, or see the value in you for who you are. And we've always got to perpetually be reminding ourselves of this, and of course being role models for our daughters and our sons as well. So, you know what, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Today. We hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Lyrically Speaking Podcast. We're so grateful for all of you, our listeners. We don't want this episode to be the end of us connecting, so tell us what your key takeaways were. They're probably different to ours, so we'd love to hear them. You can tweet us with your takeaways or leave them as a comment on our social media posts or our YouTube video for this episode. We are at Lyrically Speaking Podcast across all platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, except X, where you can find us as at Lyrically Pod. You can find Louise on Twitter and Instagram as at Carlo Coaching, that's Carlo with a K, and me, Oma, as at Oma.fam.